there are a lot of equities involved.
I wanted to bring one more person to this conversation, Art Levine, who is a contributing editor at Washington Monthly. Art, you've written a piece about a secret plan to bankrupt states and bust political employee unions. Explain what it is.
Yes. Well, what I wrote about, and I credited James Pethokoukis of Reuters for breaking the story in early December, but I aim to broaden its scope, is what it is there was a very vital part of the original stimulus plan that was called the Build America Bonds program, and it actually subsidized states so they could issue bonds for really vital building projects, and $179 billion worth of projects, from bridges and some schools and things, were built in part by states being able to raise money for these projects, and the interest that they were paying to investors was subsidized by a federal program. That program was killed. Now, that is part, and what's happening is in Republican circles, Newt Gingrich and the Weekly Standard, there's states currently in general can't declare bankruptcy, but there's a growing interest, and Gingrich has spoken about this in a speech, and the Weekly Standard has ballyhooed this, and there's likely to be legislation at a federal level allowing states to declare bankruptcy. And if they did declare bankruptcy, that would give then, under the bankruptcy court, they could rewrite all the union contracts, and it would be part of another way of going after unions. I wanted to add one point to the early discussion on pensions. Yes, there are high pensions, but AFSCME points out, and I think it's worth noting, yes, there are high pensions, but on average, their average worker gets a $19,000 a year pension on average and has a salary of $43,000. Now, I also agree with the professor that some of these exorbitant things that you ought to look at, but we need to keep this in context. So I think part of the issue to understand as well is that this threat to public employee unions, which is taking place at the state level legally, but also could be happening on the federal level as well, is aimed to be a body blow to the American labor movement, which is, if that happens, it takes away the primary organizational force against corporate power and abuses in this country. And that's the broader significance. Plus, if you depress the wages, like if Kasich gets away with lowering the wages and preventing home care and daycare workers from organizing, imagine how low that will drive down the private sector. And so all of that sort of helps bring down a race to the bottom, of which this public sector attack is part of a broader strategy. And we could end up all, in 20 years from now, like the Northern Marianas Islands, what we saw with Jake Abramoff was representing, where you have just a free fire zone attacking workers' rights.
Well, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie has been one of the harshest critics of teachers' unions. He's called on teachers to voluntarily agree to a one-year wage freeze and to contribute a percentage of their salary to cover their health insurance. This is some of what he had to say on the issue last week.
I asked the School Boards Association and the State Teachers Union to get together and to agree on a one-year pay freeze. That if teachers across the entire state of New Jersey, led by their unions, would agree to a one-year freeze in pay and contribute 1.5% of their salary to their health benefit costs, that the $820 million in state aid that we had to cut this year because of the $1 billion reduction in federal aid to education that we got in New Jersey would be wiped out almost entirely. I want to believe the teachers union when they put all those commercials on TV and say, it's about the kids. Well, here's the test. See, it's easy to say it's about the kids when people are showering 4% and 5% raises on you every year. It's easy to say it's about the kids when you're getting 100% of your medical benefits paid for by the public, as is happening here in Ramsey and all over the state for the teachers union. When you're getting everything you want, it's easy to say it's for the kids. Now we've reached a moment where the till is empty. And we have to see, what are they going to do? Are they going to say, no, we want our raises We want our health benefits fully paid for. And hell with our colleagues who will get laid off.
That was New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Michael Zweig.
The till is empty is the key to this wedge of an argument, which, as we just heard, is also about just the driving labor standards down, so there's no defense against corporate power. The till is not empty. There is a new campaign in the United States called the National, let me see that, I had it written down, I'm sorry.
National Priorities?
National Priorities Network. And the National Priorities Network.org, people can go to. It's 45 organizations around the country. And the point of it is labor organizations, education, students, peace organizations, to change the priorities of the country and move the money. We don't want to hear that there's no money. There's $100 billion this year going to Afghanistan, and $160 billion total, including Iraq. There's lots of money. There's money in the top echelons of the American corporate elite in their income taxes, in the stock transfer tax here in New York. There's a lot of money which, if we had different priorities, we could redirect that money to social purposes. But the idea that the till is empty is exactly what we have to come back and say. It is not empty. The country has tremendous wealth. We just have to have a political process and political power to redirect that, and that's what this National Priorities Network is about.
We're going to have to leave it there. I want to thank you all for being with you. 10 seconds.
10 seconds. So
Stephen
unions are
Greenhouse.
now pushing a new line saying we have to engage in shared sacrifice. If you're going to ask the unions to accept a wage freeze, well, then you have to think about raising taxes on those making more than $250,000 a year in various states. And they say, why only, go after us? There are other sources of funding, of savings.
We'll leave it there. Stephen Greenhouse, but certainly continue to follow this issue. Author of The Big Squeeze, New York Times labor reporter Michael Zweig, professor at State University of New York at Stony Brook, and Art Levine, contributing editor at Washington Monthly. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org War and Peace Report. When we come